This is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Sidney Mecham? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I'll put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, move to the timeline of the alleged crime, then offer my analysis. Sidney Sean Mecham was born on May 8, 1981, and lived in Portland, Oregon. He had an extensive criminal history involving offenses of a sexual nature. He was first charged with offenses in 1996, but those charges were dismissed. He was convicted of other charges in 1999 and in 2016. Sidney is the type of offender who is required to register. He was convicted on a few occasions of failing to do so. Sidney also had a history of traffic violations. In 2013, he was convicted of driving without insurance, and in 2019, he was convicted of driving with a suspended license. Now moving to the timeline of the alleged crime. On June 10, 2023, the Portland Rose Festival's Grand Floral Parade was held in the neighborhood of North Portland. Despite his driver's license being suspended and not having insurance, Sidney was out driving that day in his gray Chevrolet Avalanche. For some reason, Sidney's truck was outfitted with 3 cameras, one facing forward, one facing rear, and one recording the inside of the vehicle. In video that was later presented in court, Sidney could be seen driving west on Interstate 84 after leaving his home in South Portland. Sidney was talking to someone on the phone. He mentioned how he was on his way to the Rose Garden. It's not clear if he was talking about the parade or something else. He appeared to have plans to meet his mother. As Sidney approached the ramp toward northbound Interstate 5, he noticed that various exits had been blocked off by the Department of Transportation to protect the Grand Floral Parade route. Music can be heard playing in Sidney's vehicle. It remained on for the rest of his magical journey. Sidney once again had a discussion on his phone. He said, quote, "They got it all blocked off. The Lloyd Center exit, the Convention Center exit, every blanking exit," unquote. To express his displeasure with the Department of Transportation workers who were blocking the exits, Sidney honked his horn and made obscene gestures. At this point, Sidney took the Broadway Weidler Street exit, which was closed for the parade. The exit was blocked off by several traffic cones that Sidney simply ran over. As he approached large barricades blocking the road, Sidney steered to the right and drove onto an embankment to get around them. He did the same thing to dodge Department of Transportation vehicles, which were also blocking the road. As Sidney came up to Weidler Street, there were 2 trucks blocking the roadway. Sidney once again maneuvered his pickup truck onto an embankment to get around them. A worker wearing an orange vest can be seen trying to get Sidney's attention. Sidney turned onto Weidler Street, which was part of the parade route. The parade was due to start in 20 minutes. There were people lined up on both sides of the street and children in the middle of the road picking up candy. Sidney was not authorized to be there, and his presence represented a clear danger to the pedestrians. People could be seen quickly moving out of the way of his vehicle as they looked on in horror. Nobody could believe that there was this truck just driving on the parade route. Sidney almost hit several different pedestrians as he continued down the street. A police officer pursued Sidney on a motorcycle and attempted to pull him over. Sidney refused to stop his vehicle. He yelled out of the window that he was trying to get out. The officer continued pursuing Sidney and pulled in front of his pickup truck. It was clear the officer wanted Sidney to stop. There were many clues, like the flashing emergency lights, the siren, and the officer holding out his hand. Sidney once again screamed at the officer, saying, "I'm trying to get out," almost like the officer was being impatient. As the officer was in front of the pickup truck, Sidney turned left onto Northeast Wasco Street and off the parade route. There were barricades and volunteers positioned at this intersection, but Sidney wasn't too worried about that. He slammed right through the barricades and almost hit a volunteer who moved a barricade out of Sidney's way. At a traffic light, an unmarked police SUV pulled in front of Sidney's pickup truck. He reacted by simply steering to the right and driving around the SUV. By this point, Sidney was being tracked by a police aircraft, and ground units were converging on his position. In an effort to escape, he turned left without stopping at a stop sign and slammed into barricades. Moments later, he ran through more barricades. The video appears to skip forward. Sidney can be seen driving around and ignoring stop signs as usual. He drove through barricades again. Sidney finally stopped near the intersection of Northeast 24th Avenue and Clackamas Street. He was promptly arrested, and his pickup truck was towed. Sidney Mecham was charged with 38 offenses, 17 counts of unlawful use of a weapon, the weapon was his vehicle, 15 counts of reckless endangerment, 2 counts of failing to perform the duties of a driver, attempted assault, reckless driving, attempting to assault a public safety officer, and attempting to elude police. He was also cited for driving with a suspended license and not having insurance. When Sidney pleaded not guilty, he mentioned that he was disoriented. It sounds like this is the defense he is going to offer for driving on the parade route. Now moving to my analysis. Here are my thoughts on a few areas that stood out to me in this case. Item number 1. Some people believe that Sidney's behavior is consistent with road rage. Let's take a look at that construct. The term road rage was first introduced in the United States in the late 1980s, but the phenomenon of driver aggression existed many years before that. There are numerous references to aggressive driving behaviors going back to the 1960s. Road rage has been challenging to define, and there is quite a bit of disagreement about it. It is not simply a driver getting angry at other drivers on the road. Unfortunately, many drivers are so horrible that drivers being angry at them is a natural and expected reaction. The term road rage is generally reserved for an intense maladaptive anger triggered by driving-related stimuli while operating a motor vehicle. There needs to be some type of overt act of aggression beyond merely honking a horn or yelling at another driver. Road rage isn't about having a normal reaction to bad driving. It's about overreacting and being aggressive. Here are a few examples of typical road rage behaviors: aggressively overtaking other vehicles, racing vehicles from traffic lights and other competitive behavior, tailgating, and intentionally ramming another vehicle. Road rage is common. 90% of motorists have experienced road rage in the past 12 months. It is also dangerous. 67% of fatal collisions involve some type of aggressive driving. Item number 2, what causes road rage? It is caused when a person who is predisposed to get angry and act on that anger witnesses a poor driving incident that is interpreted as hostile, disrespectful, or unfriendly. For example, road rage can be triggered by being cut off, another motorist failing to yield, or being tailgated. In some cases, it can be triggered by more benign circumstances, like a motorist who is driving slowly. Item number 3, what are the typical characteristics of a road rage offender? People who engage in road rage behavior tend to be younger, male, and inexperienced with driving. They often have lower socioeconomic status, a history of violence, and not much driving experience. Over half meet the criteria for a mental disorder featured in the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual. Conditions which are overrepresented include substance use, antisocial personality disorder, schizophrenia, and anxiety disorders. As far as personality characteristics, road rage offenders tend to be low in conscientiousness, impulsive, sensation-seeking, and have an external locus of control. They are typically arrogant. They believe they are better than every other driver on the road. They have a pronounced sense of entitlement. From their perspective, they deserve complete respect from every other driver. And they are self-centered. They believe that their time is the only time that matters. Road rage offenders often justify their behavior, declaring it to be an appropriate response to provocation. They maintain an overwhelming sense that other drivers are always in the wrong, and they have a strong desire to save face when disrespected by another driver. Item number 4, moving back to the case of Sidney Mecham, does road rage explain his behavior? Road rage is essentially an expression of general aggression that occurs in a vehicle. Any type of scenario where rage exists can lead to a separate term. For example, there is air rage, computer rage, and even supermarket checkout rage. Many people are getting angry and converting that anger into dangerous physical behavior. In Sidney's case, he was not disrespected by another driver or anyone else. His rage was triggered by exits being blocked for a parade. He screamed at the Department of Transportation workers, but it wasn't their fault that the exits were closed. That was not their decision. Sidney appeared to be arrogant, grandiose, and had extremely low frustration tolerance. He somehow believed that his desire to travel a certain route superseded the city's right to have a parade. Sidney's behavior can technically be considered road rage, but his threshold for becoming physically aggressive is incredibly low. If he is this intolerant of driving conditions, Sidney should never be allowed to drive again. Item number 5. What about Sidney's defense of being disoriented? In looking at the video that he recorded, Sidney appeared to be acting with a purpose. He frequently looked in his mirrors, he maneuvered his vehicle past obstacles, and he acknowledged the police officer who was trying to pull him over. Amazingly, Sidney didn't actually strike any human beings, although he wiped out many barricades. I think what happened here is that he simply wanted to exit, and then he was surprised when he encountered all the people waiting for the Rose Festival's Grand Floral Parade. Like he didn't believe the roads were blocked for a legitimate reason. Once in this predicament, Sidney did not want to stop and smell the roses, but he continued to rain on the parade. He fled law enforcement because his license was suspended. Now moving to my final thoughts. Discourteous drivers, tailgaters, people who think they own the road, and parade routes will always exist in society. Those who are prone to road rage will never experience a shortage of provocation. It's understandable to be frustrated and even angry sometimes when encountering these circumstances, but aggression is never the answer. The case of Sidney Mecham can be summarized in this way. A remedial driver recklessly revealed road rage and rammed roadblocks restricting a Rose Parade route. Remarkably, he refrained from running into revelers as he retreated from relentless officers. Regarding his rights, he resides at the end of the road. Those are my thoughts in the case of Sidney Mecham. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.